Hey everyone, this is Dylan, and today we're going to be doing my reaction to my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2022. So I thought that this would be kind of a good way to slip in a couple reviews and what I thought about the movies that I was most anticipating for last year. So unfortunately, last year was kind of crazy. And I had a lot going on, and especially towards the end of the year, things just kind of went off the rails in my personal life, and it was just crazy. So I wanted to be able to do some of these reviews and give my thoughts about some of the things that I was most anticipating, because I wasn't able to do that during the actual year. And I did watch every single thing that I was most anticipating except one, and I'll get to that when I get to it. But let's get right on into it. And I did have an honorable mention for 2022 most anticipated, and that was Time Cut. Now, this is the one that I did not get to watch because it did not come out in 2022. So maybe it's going to come out in 2023. I would imagine that's the case, because this movie, I think, has been worked on and is done, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So I can't talk about that one. But at number 10, we had Halloween Ends. And this was a movie, I watched it on Peacock. I did not watch it in theaters. I will say that I significantly liked Halloween Ends more than any of the other movies in the trilogy. I did not particularly like the first one. I thought that it was okay, but I did not like the depiction of Laurie Strode. I thought that it was a little bit ridiculous, the way that they took her character, and I liked the depiction in Halloween H2O a lot better. Now, this movie reminds me a little bit more of Halloween H2O. I did have some issues with this movie, but not the issues that most people had. It was only 5 years or so between the events of Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and Laurie Strode is like a completely different person. I think that that is a bit unrealistic. I also didn't like how they kind of build this as the final battle between Laurie and Michael, and then it's only like the last 20 minutes, and it is completely rushed. I think that while I like some elements of this movie, I think that overall, it was just a bit of a mess to be the last installment in this trilogy. Then at number 9, we had Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Now, whenever I put this on my list of most anticipated, I knew that chances are it wasn't gonna be great. I did have high hopes because they did wrangle the rights, I guess, to the franchise away from the creator. And unfortunately, this movie was terrible. It was entirely too low budget. Like, the original Jeepers Creepers movies were kind of low budget. Even Jeepers Creepers 3 looks better than this movie. This movie had a terrible kind of like meta storyline, and I just thought that it looked terrible. The creeper himself looked terrible. The makeup on him was literally the worst. At most points, you could tell it was just somebody had a like almost like a cowl on, and then it was just their body, like just somebody's shirtless guy, and it was just bad. So definitely don't recommend watching that one. Then at number 8, we have Orphan First Kill. This movie, I didn't really know what to think going into it because it has been such a long time since the first one, and they're using the same actress, Isabel Fuhrman, to play Esther in a prequel where she's supposed to be younger than what she was in the original, and she's now a 20-year-old or 20-something-year-old woman. And I did think that that was a little iffy, like how she looked, because clearly she just looked like a 20-something-year-old woman in like a child body. But this movie was a lot of fun. They did have a good twist like what the original had. Maybe not as like jaw-dropping, but it was still pretty big twist. And so I'm glad that they really did that. And overall, this was just a fun, campy movie. And I would definitely recommend checking this one out if you've never seen it. Then number 7, we have Morbius. Now, I was excited about this because I was a big fan of Venom, and Venom 2 was a little iffy for me, but I thought that this would be cool. It's a vampire character who is like a superhero, and I thought that we'd have another Venom. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and Morbius was basically just your run-of-the-mill superhero movie, and it was just mediocre. It was not terrible, but it also wasn't like blow your socks off, so it didn't necessarily live up to my expectations. Then at number 6, we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Overall, I was not a huge fan of this movie. I thought that there were some like really weird things that they included in there, like the sub-storyline about a school shooting that did not need to be there at all. And then what they did to the original character of Sally was pretty unforgivable as well. I did think Leatherface was interesting. I'm not sure how I liked the new makeup. There were some sequences in this movie that were really cool, but yeah, it just didn't work out for me very well. Coming in at number 5, we have Jurassic World Dominion. This was another movie that I had high hopes for because you were bringing back the original characters from Jurassic Park. You were melding them with Jurassic World. Unfortunately, nobody gets the time that they need to be. They're not really together for very long, and the whole entire storyline is just kind of not the best. Like, the whole idea was that dinosaurs have left the island and they've now been on the mainland, and I don't think they did that to the fullest potential, and unfortunately it just didn't work out that well. I mean, it was a decent movie, but not the best. Number 4, I had Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This was another movie that was extremely hyped up. I think that was one of the themes of 2022, was that things got overhyped. At least for me, things got overhyped. My expectations went through the roof for a lot of these things, and then they weren't able to live up to what people were saying or anything like that. Even the fact that I could go into something completely blind and a lot of people were like, oh my God, I really love this. This is such a great movie. And even that raised the expectations on this movie, on movies in general. And it really tarnished a lot of movies for me. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna love this. And then I go into the movie, and even if I don't know anything about it, I still end up not living up to my expectations, and then somewhat feeling disappointed when I stop watching it. So that was kind of what happened with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. There are elements of it that I really liked, but overall, I think that they had way too much stuff that they were trying to do in this movie, and they just didn't have the time to execute it all. And that was a big disappointment. Then coming in at number 3, we have Nope. I was really excited about this. I have liked Jordan Peele's other movies, Get Out and Us. I don't really remember Us too much, but I mean, I went and saw Get Out in theaters, loved it. A really great movie that really kind of ushered us into a new era of horror. So I really do like that. And it was such a shocking movie too. And Nope was actually really good. So it definitely might not be quite up to the level of Get Out, but definitely like second place for me in the terms of Get Out, Nope, and Us. I thought that this movie was really well constructed. It had a great cast. Keke Palmer was excellent in this, and it had a very interesting story. It kept me engaged, and there were some great visuals, and overall, just a stellar movie and a great year for horror. Now the number 2 that I had chosen for most anticipated movies of 2022 was Hellraiser. I am a big fan of Hellraiser, especially the first 3 Hellraiser movies, and I was really excited for this new one to come out. And overall, I thought that it was all right. I was missing a lot of the traditional Hellraiser stuff. I think that it was interesting that they chose pleasure. So the Hellraiser franchise is all about pain and pleasure. And so for this iteration of Hellraiser, they chose like drugs as pleasure. The thing is that Hellraiser is so steeped in the sexual pleasure that unfortunately I was missing that kind of element from from this movie. Like, I really wanted to see, because the whole idea is that the Cenobites are all in S&M gear and all of that. And I was really just missing that element of the Hellraiser story in this. I do like that they did the different take on it, but unfortunately, since this is an established brand, and there are like 10 plus movies of Hellraiser before this one, that's already ingrained in the brand. And when you try to take it in a different direction, it might not stick as well as they would have hoped. I also liked some of the new Cenobites. I'm glad that Chatterer was back. That's one of my favorite Cenobites. And I think that the new Pinhead, I was a little iffy about the performance. I thought that the voice was a little strange. And then I also didn't necessarily like the makeup. Like, there wasn't so much stuff to break up the makeup. So with the original Cenobites in general, there was a lot of like black, and they were in like leather gear, and they just had like exposed parts of their body. But this one, it was like they were wearing stuff and it was the same color as what their body looked like. So it just kind of all blended together, and I was a little unhappy with the way that the makeup turned out. Then let's get on to my most anticipated movie of 2022, and that was Scream 5. Now, I went into this movie extremely hyped. There were a bunch of people who had done reviews, had glowing reviews of this movie. Everyone that had seen it before it came out, because I saw it on opening night, said that it was great. One of the best Scream movies that there has been. I think I saw a bunch of lists where people were ranking it, and they were like Scream 1, Scream 5, and then whatever order the rest of them were in. And I was beyond hyped for this movie. And that was the big downfall. Like, this movie was okay, but the way that people were talking, they were like, this is something else. And unfortunately, I was missing a lot of the stuff that originally was in the Scream franchise. They were trying to do it, but it didn't really work out quite as well as I would have hoped. And there was a lot of things that I just wasn't very happy about. If you haven't seen this, then I'm about to say a big spoiler. So I guess click off this video. But I wasn't happy that they decided to kill Dewey, but then they didn't give Sidney a chance to actually see Dewey before he died. Sidney came in afterwards. So we didn't get a final reunion between our three survivors, Sidney, Gale, and Dewey. I thought that that was pretty bad. I think that as a franchise, those three characters were the glue that held this franchise together for decades. And then not to have them be reunited before the death of one of them, I thought was pretty shitty. And I didn't really appreciate the movie for that. But, you know, that is what it is. And that was my reaction to my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2022. Let me know what your top 10 movies of 2022 were, and what you thought of the movies that were on your list, or what you thought of the movies that were on my list. And remember, if you're not already subscribed and you'd like to be, please hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a like if you liked it. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. Bye.